So welcome back to another one of my videos. In today's video, I'm actually going to be answering a question that was submitted by you in the comments. It's not something I ever thought of making, but it is a video that I think definitely I can see value in. So I'll just read the comment to you what I got. I've got it on my phone. I'll put it up on screen as well while I read it to you. So the comment put here, this thanking me for the group, but it says here, can you do a video on what it's like to work at Connell's as a broker? As there are lots of new advisors who'd like to start out employed. Could you explain the process from the interview process, initial training to earning your cash? How long does that take? How the commission works? Also, can you have a rough idea? I know you can't give exact figures, the targets you'd expect to achieve in business, i.e. written, and how commission structure works on a percentage, because business we write and how we receive the payment. This is actually a really great question and one that I've never considered actually talking about. I've talked about little bits at cases. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to just talk about my situation being a Connell's advisor, what my process was like. I must point out straight away before we go any deeper with this, Connell's is a massive company. It's a gigantic company, a very good company to work for, and everybody's experience is probably going to be very different, but there is a base level. I am also lucky enough that my dad, to be in a position where my dad at the time when I was a broker, my dad was also the head of training and development for Connell's at the time. So that meant that I had a deeper understanding of what was actually supposed to happen and what the kind of stuff you would get. Now, this is very different. It could have changed by now. Since then, Countrywide have been bought by Connell's and all this stuff. But I'll tell you my experience. The last advisor I spoke to at Connell's recently, and I also speak to quite a lot of people high up in Connell's, very high up in Connell's actually, but I won't say who they are because they share stuff with me. They say it's pretty much the same thing still. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the interview structure, initial training, earning cash, overall timescales, how commission works, the targets that they set, and also I'm going to add an extra bit, which is the other skills needed. So other skills you'd need in order to thrive in there. So let's start off with the interview. So when it comes to applying for a role at Connell's, from my own experience, Connell's will advertise online. So unlike, you might get some recruiters, but it's quite rare. The recruiters are normally going to be recruiting for those higher positions, those sales managers, those divisional managers, those regional managers. The mortgage broker role themselves, if you're looking for a role as a broker, you're probably going to see them advertised out there or straight away. So you'll be able to see them there. Now, they will actually state with a lot of these, you don't need qualifications in order to become an advisor at Connell's. That's really important to point out. Connell's will put you through your CMAP. And at the time when I did it, it was a CII. So it was CF1 and CF6. So they will put you through the qualifications. They will fund all of it. Obviously, if you've got the qualification, great. You'll get on there quicker. We'll talk about training in a minute. But if you don't have a qualification, but you still want to be a broker, this can be a great route to go down. This is how I got my qualifications, is I went through and did it through them. It's a really great way. Their training program is probably one of the best, and they'll pay for it all. So they'll pay for all of it. I'll talk about the training and stuff like that and the other things to point out in a minute, but they will pay for it all. So when you do the interview, remember that you don't have to be qualified. You just have to have a desire to be in there and a desire to want to do the job. Now, what are they looking for oftentimes in these interviews? They're looking for people who are sales driven. Remember, with Connell's and Connell's Group, so that could be Sequence, Countrywide, that could be all any of the things they're part of. They're a estate agency first. They're looking for people who are sales driven, people who are go-getters and want to try and actually be good at the job. If you're somebody who wants to do this job for work-life balance and all that stuff, this company is not for you. If you have to work-life balance, it's going to be long hours. It's going to be a lot of work, but you can make good money and you'll get incredible training. So if you're going to the interview, that's the type of skill that they want to see, is somebody who has a sales drive. Now, one thing I would also add, if you want to do really well, learn about property. So learn about the estate agency industry, learn about how that works. That is the thing single-handedly that made me more successful at this role, was that I'd been an estate agent for Connell's beforehand for a number of years, and I was quite a good agent. So when I came in, I knew how that side of the business worked, and you will be working very closely, in fact, really closely with the agents. So you do need to understand that. And for me, and then my good friend that joined with me at the time, she had a retail background, which was fine. And she was incredibly good at retail. She didn't have an estate agency background, and she found that very hard because she didn't have a mortgage background. She didn't have a finance background, and then there was nothing to cling to. So where the best brokers I've seen who do well in Connell's have either an estate agency background or they have a desire to want to be involved in that world. Demonstrating that in the interview process, that's going to help. Now, the interview process can be a couple of interviews, depending on what will happen. You'll normally speak to your direct sales manager first, and then you may have an interview with the sales manager that might even be the regional kind of manager, so like the one above him or her. And then you may even have an interview with the branch manager as well, the estate agency side, to see if it's a good fit. So that's the kind of interview process. And let's talk about the initial training. So when it comes to initial training, realistically, the training is, in my opinion, it's unparalleled. I'm biased. My dad did a lot of it and built a lot of it. It's different now, obviously, but at the time. So they will put you through their qualifications, like I said, if you haven't got any. So if you've not got qualifications, what you'll originally do is you will come in as a trainee mortgage advisor, and you will effectively shadow mortgage brokers and in different branches. You'll also shadow some estate agency work. At the time, we had to do a plan called a NELP, which is a new NELP. It was a new, I think it was new entrant learning program. I think that was what it was, a new employee learning program. And it was effectively understanding estate agency. And you had to sign off, okay, you understand, you've been in evaluation, you've been on a sale, and you understood all these different things around the estate agency, around the mortgage side of things, and they would train you up, and you'd have to finish this NELP. And all that time you're waiting to put you on a training course. They would then send you away you would have a week intensive. So what would happen is it'd be Monday to Thursday, and that first week would be spent, and you would just literally go to a hotel. They would teach you everything you need to know to pass your, it's like CMAP equivalent exam. So you'd learn in a week that, because with the CII, it's 2 exams, it's not 3. So you would learn everything for the CF1 exam in 4 days, be a very intensive like classroom experience. And then they would pay for all your food, all your accommodation, everything else. You would study in the evening. And then on the Friday, you would normally go and sit the exam. So you'd go to an exam, a governing body, they would pay for all of that, obviously, and put you up. And so they would go and you would go and sit the exam. Once you pass that exam, if you fail, they would pay for resits. I think you can get 3 resits. If you pass, you would then get put onto the next lot of training ones, which might be in a 2 or 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time. And in that time, you would then go and sit you'd do the same thing for your second exams. So they'd same hotel, same kind of room. You'd go through the training, you'd learn the CF6, which is going to be your CMAP 2 and 3 equivalent. And you would then, same thing, go and do your exams. And once you're qualified, you would then move on to the training program. So that takes place. They pay for all of that. You then go to your training program, and your training program is a 3-week. So it's a lot of training. You're away for about 6 weeks, all in all, for the first maybe 6 months. Your training program, what would happen, I don't know if this is the same anymore, but this is what would happen when I was there. And it might be different, but you would do 2 weeks. You would go away and you would learn the job, and you would do the job. As you go away, go back to your branches, whatever it may be, until they get you in a training program, and you would go with a load of other new entrants, and you would be put on this 3-week intensive course to learn the entire system, learn how to submit mortgages, learn how to source them, learn how to do it compliantly, like everything you need to do in order to be a broker. 2 of those weeks would normally be spent at a facility, at these different facilities all around the country. And then there would be a central one, which was in Leicester at the time. And you would go to Leicester, and then you would do effectively this entire week of role playing. So the first 2 weeks was learning it. The final week was role play, and you would just role play in this learning hub at the top building in like a big office in Leicester. And that's where they would effectively role play sourcing cases over and over again. And you would have to get signed off at the end of that week. Once you were signed off, you would then be sent back, and you would then be you'd then be under supervision of your manager. And that would be then when you would start to go into getting CAS, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So once you've done all that, you can now write business under supervision of your manager. And that would be the whole intensive process. Now that would take about 6 months to do all in all, like maybe 6 months. If you've got CAS already, you've got CMAP already, that can be very much sped up because you're waiting on those. But if you haven't, then it'll probably take you that. If you have got CMAP already, great example, like with me, I worked for Connell's twice. I didn't have to go on the training courses the second time around because I wasn't away long enough. But you can quite easily just get onto the training course, and as soon as you're on the training course, you can write business. So that's how you go. That's the initial training. Now let's talk about CAS. This is going to be a long video, so I do apologize for this. Let's talk about CAS. So earning CAS, can't remember the exact thing I had to do at the time, but I had to do a certain amount of cases that I had to hit. At the time, they had red, amber, green status because Connell's is DA. They're authorized by themselves. They're not under any network. They have their own compliance structure and system. And for the CAS, you had to get, from my understanding, you had to get, I think it was, I might be wrong here, I think it was either 3 or 5 cases that were suitable or suitable with development. And so in other words, green. They were like green cases. So you would have to have this suitable with development. And that's how it used to work. It used to be suitable with development, unclear, and unsuitable meant the product, the advice was wrong. Unclear meant it was unclear what the advice, whether it was right or wrong. Suitable with development meant that it was a clear case, but the file was a little bit messy. And suitable meant it's brilliant, we don't have any problems. You needed to have, I think it was 3 or 5 cases as suitable with development. Now that sounds simple, it's very difficult. And so it would probably take some advisors anywhere up to 6 months to 8 months to get CAS. You'd be submitting a lot more mortgages and 5 mortgages in that time frame. You would get a lot of unclears. And I think you needed to have them in a row, suitable with, like, all of them had to be like suitable with about like 5 in a row. I can't remember exactly, and I might be wrong with that. It's been a while since I've been at Connell's, but it was something like that. And I remember it being, or 3 cases in a row or something. It was very, if you'd get an unclear, you'd be like, because you'd have to restart it again. But it was very frustrating, but it was very doable. And it did it, and everybody I met, everyone I knew passed. It was doable. The training is very good. They are the best at training, for sure. They make the best advisors. Some of the best self-employed advisors I work with now, as a coach, came from Connell's. A lot of them do. They're brilliant at that. There's lots of things they're not good at, but there's lots of things they are. And their training is one of them. They're incredible at it. So earning CAS is not as hard as it looks. It's harder to earn CAS in self-employed roles, from my experience being in both of those different roles. It's much harder to earn CAS in self-employed because you don't have the same support, to be honest. That's the main thing. So that's the earning CAS. Now, let's talk about the overall timescales. As I said, timescales are an interesting one. The overall timescales to get qualified, as I said, is probably going to be about 6 months. If you're going to be qualified and then started writing business, could be 3 to 6 months, depending on your level of what you're doing. And during that time, we're talking about commissions and stuff and salaries and things, but during that time, they'll be funding you for that. So you'll still be paid, you'll be on a trainee salary and things like that, but that's the time scale for that, 3 to 6 months. Then for CAS, probably again, 3 to 6 months again. So you could take about a year before you're fully actually writing business unsupervised and doing that, which, by the way, is fine. This job it takes a long time to be good at. Now, with timescales, one thing you do want to point out with this is that where Connell's differs to many other companies is that Connell's will offer you a lot of the time what they call guaranteed commission. So they'll pay you a commission uplift when you first start, because you aren't going to be writing business for a long time. So they might pay you 300, 500, 1,000, 1,500 pounds, whatever. It's negotiated about your skill level. So it's not about everyone is equal. It's about skill level and things like that. For example, like I've had guaranteed commission twice at Connell's. I worked with different brands, and the first one was significantly lower as a trainee. The second one, I was very much a seasoned advisor. I was good. My uplift was significantly higher. My salary was significantly higher. My commission was significantly higher. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but it was significantly higher than it was when I started. So trainee is going to always be lower. But these guaranteed commissions and your training costs, they come at a cost. You are locked in a training debt with that, meaning that if you go and do your training with them and you take that guaranteed commission, you have to work for them for, I think when our memory serves me correctly, it's 2 years, and you have to work with them for 2 years, or you have to pay it back. After the 2 years, you can leave, you can do what you want, and many do, and many stay, because it is a good place to work. And many leave, many stay. But if you're not going to be in it for 2 years, don't bother going working for them, because they will chase you for it and they'll come after it. And you'll hear people say, I never paid it, I did this. They'll get you eventually for it. Or if they don't, I think it's bad practice on your behalf to do that. They have invested in you, they have put time into you. They are a company, they're not the devil, they are a good company. Would I work for them again? Probably, yeah, they're all right. They're a good company. They're a corporate company. I don't expect any more from them than that, but to be completely honest. But they're fine. They were absolutely fine. but they're corporate, which means they're going to care about the bottom line. People are replaceable, and you're never going to make the most money that you could. It's just facts. I think that's something really important to point out. But they are a semi-decent, they're a decent enough company, probably the best out there in regards to corporate. Now, so be aware of that you will have to pay it back. So that's the time scale. So 2 years, once you're in there, you're locked in for 2 years. So be ready to be locked in. I did pay it back the second time because I left. I joined. So my thing with me is I joined Connell's. I worked for Connell's. I trained under Connell's. I did my 2 years of Connell's. I went off and I worked in an IFA firm in this kind of hybrid role. It didn't really work out. It's where I started making social media. It didn't really work out the way I would have liked it to have worked out. I needed to go back. They took me back. I absolutely have a lot of respect for them for that. They took me back. They brought me back on as an advisor in a much better office and a much higher opportunity. And then I took that guaranteed commission. That was fine. It was 2 years in. And then what happened was I started generating leads myself through my social media, which I've been doing when I was self-employed, like on my own in that hybrid role. But it started to really bear fruit at that point. And so it was like, okay, I'm going to cash out now. And I left and I went self-employed on my own and went full, set up my own business under a network. And that was it. So I did pay them back the second time round. And it was quite a lot of money. It was a couple of grand. It was about 6 grand, 7 grand. I had to pay it back. So they will pay you back. But at the end of the day, I think it's a fair and just thing. They're not being unfair, even though you'll hear people say that. They're not. So let's talk about commission. So commission structures will probably be different now to what they were when I was there. But when I was there, this is how the commission structure worked. You would get a basic salary as a mortgage broker. You would get, which for me, I can tell you what my basics and stuff was because I don't really care about it. So my basic salary when I first started was 18,000, and my commission, I think was, and again, my commission then was 10% of whatever I had written. So anything, or whatever banked. So 10% of whatever banked. So after it had written and completed, I also got a car allowance. And I think my car allowance was £150 a month. And then I also got a bonus. And I think my bonus was 1.5% at the time, 1.5% of my overall bank earnings that year. So the bonus would come at the end of the year. If you were compliant, you'd get the extra thing. So it was like 1.5, might be 2.5. I think it was about 12.5% is what my overall commission would have been, which is about right. I think 10 and then, yeah. So that was my training. Now I didn't get any of the car allowance until I was fully qualified. I had to have cash to get my car allowance. And that was there. Now in my first year, I don't know what I would have made on that. I can't remember the amount of money I would have made on that, but that was the basics. Now that would probably run you anywhere between 30 to 40 grand a year. If you're good, probably anywhere from, I know the girl I worked with, she did about 25,000 that year. I think it would have probably been me close to 40, probably around then. I don't really know, but it would be roughly around that. Like you could do quite well, but close to that, potentially, maybe 35. I can't, this was a long time ago, but that's the kind of starting the trainee salary. Now it goes up. And so to put into context, when I rejoined, my basic was 25,000. My commission was 18%. My bonus was 3.5%. Car allowance, I think, was £250. In fact, it might have been £300. And my OTE for that would have been a lot higher. Probably would have been about 80, 90. For the place I was at, the branch I was at, I probably would have been 80, 90 on OTE. I didn't do it long enough to because my bleed started to generate, that I went off and did it on my own and did very well on that. So that was fine. But that was the kind of commission structure once you're in. Now you work your way up through that. So you get, the way that it works as well is you get promoted through that. So as time goes on, you hit certain thresholds. They can't be called targets because of regulation, but they are. And you hit certain thresholds and you increase and you'll get a different title. And that effectively means nothing other than you get a new pay grade. And it's just a new pay grade as you go through. So when I came in, when I left as like a mortgage advisor, you're a trainee, then you're a mortgage advisor. And then I came in as like a higher pay grade. I can't remember the name of the one I was on, but that was how that worked. Now let's just do a couple other things. So we've got targets and skills I want to talk about. So targets wise, to be honest, there is targets. There are KPIs. You will be tracked. You will be monitored. You will have a sales manager who's going to breathe down your neck if they're good. And they will do that. And if you're not good with that and the pressure of that, this probably isn't going to be for you. They will do that a lot. But the targets are, again, I can only speak to mine. In my one, they wanted us to write 100 grand. So we needed to write 100 grand a year. That was the unofficial kind of team target of like everybody writes 100 grand or more, which I did in my first year very much, but many people didn't. But the team I was with, I was very lucky that at the time, the team I was with, we had something like 6 of the top 10 high performers in the entire company in this one team, which was amazing for me because I was not one of those 6, by the way. But I was one of the best newcomers in our kind of squad, in our area, in my kind of like branch brand kind of thing. So I did really well. But I was very lucky to be around some of the best people in the company at that point. So it's like iron sharpens iron. You learn from good people. And but the targets we were always given unofficially was we need to write 100,000. Now your targets would be set by your branch manager, your location, and again, this is a long time ago. I can imagine that's probably higher. Right? If I was a sales manager right now, I'd probably thinking 150. They're going to provide you with tons of leads. They're going to provide you with all the leads. So that's important to understand. So that's like the target side of things. There are targets you need to hit, and I can't remember the exact amount, but they will, those specific targets, they're KPIs, like selling a certain amount of insurance, selling a certain amount of things, that will get you the promotions you need in order to get your higher pay grade. So let's talk about other skills to wrap this one up. Other skills needed. Honestly, if you're not cut out, so the skills with this is you're going to have to be a salesperson. You've got to be a salesperson. And one thing I would say with this is you can generate, leads will be generated for you. They will pass you leads from their massive thousands of people back book they have. So anybody who is in that office that you've replaced, you just inherit all their clients. It's pretty mad. Rubbish if you start a new branch. So that's something I would say be aware of. If they're going to put you in a new branch, you don't inherit anything. If you go into an old branch, the guy went to my first branch, I inherited it was a branch that had been there for a good couple of years, a good, say, I think like 10 years. But some of these branches have been around for 40 years, some of the ones they've got. And obviously, they haven't got mortgages 40 years long, but like some of them have been around that long. But some of these mortgage services have been there 10 years, 15 years. You get all of those remos, all of those remortgages just keep dropping into your diary, and they'll have a unit will book them into a diary, plus all of the mortgage appointments that the estate agent, negotiators, and branch managers are all targeted to do to book you in. So your diary will be, your job is not to get leads, your job is to write the business. Their job is to provide you with leads. The skill, however, I would say is learn how to become a self-gen as well. So learn how to, if I was to do it again and I didn't do this, and this is what I wish I'd done, knowing now, having been a coach and a business coach for some 7-figure mortgage brokers, is that the sooner you can learn to be self-sufficient, the better you're going to be out on your own if you want to go on your own in the future. That's the biggest learning curve, is that you can get quite fat and lazy, sat there, people feeding you, making 30, 40, 50, 60 grand a year. If you're good, you're pushing it 90. There are people who make more than that, obviously, but it's geographically, the commission structure is designed to keep you below that within some ways. But if you want to only go on your own, you do need to be able to self-gen. And so that's something that I would definitely say, get really good at self-genning while you're learning with them helping you. And also get really involved in property. You need to be somebody like long hours. You need to be loving the property industry. You want to be really understanding that. And you want to be willing to, I say long hours is a big one. Working weekends is just a given. You're going to have to work weekends. I worked every Saturday and I got a day off in the week. So I'd work 5 days a week, but I would have a Wednesday off, but I worked every Saturday. When I was an estate agent in the same company, I would work 6 days. I'd work Monday to Saturday every week. So that is just a given. You'd be in at 7:30. You'd be leaving at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. That is standard. But if you want to do this job, and this is what I'll end this video on here before I ask any questions. If you want to do this job and you are somebody who's really keen on getting good at this and actually making this your career, I can very much say hands down, there's no better place to learn. There's no better place to learn how to do the job than Connell's, in my opinion. It just isn't. There just isn't. You're going to learn all the skills you need to. You're going to learn what to do. You're also going to learn what not to do. And you're also going to learn the good practices that go on behind the scenes. And you're going to learn the dirty tactics that the estate agents employ to try and steal your clients when you're out on your own. In my opinion, it's the best place to go. It really is. But it is going to be hard and it's going to be demanding. And if you're precious and you don't want that, then go and find some other option, personally. Anyway, that's my own experience of Connell's. It's a longer video than I intended it to make, but I knew it was going to be. If you want to learn more about how you actually become a broker and all that type of stuff, then you can check out this video up here on the screen, which is my breakdown as to all the things you need to do in order to become a mortgage broker. But if you have any questions about this, you'd like a question that you'd like me to answer on this show, on this YouTube channel, for example, drop them in the comments. Just say, could you do a video on this? And I'll happily do it. Because at the end of the day, this channel is for me to share everything about growing in the mortgage business, in the mortgage industry, whether that is just starting out, which is why I'm focusing more on this at the moment, because I've spent the last 5 years focusing on growing 5 to 6 to 7 figures businesses now in the industry. Now I would like to help you guys. So if there's any questions you want answered, like this one today, let me know and I'll do them. Anyway, have a wonderful day. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.